Thank you for joining us on our QTV Business and Economy program. The Business and Economy program is intended to promote the ideals of a corporate Gambia identity with the objective of forging partnerships through dialogue between the public and the private sector, civil society organizations, and the international community. In today's episode, we shall be discussing the excise tax issues surrounding a flagship foreign direct investment in the Gambia dating as far back as 1973. Banjul Breweries Limited was incorporated in the Gambia in 1973 and began operations in 1977. Some 46 years after being incorporated in the Gambia, we risk the closure of this flagship foreign direct investment. What are the issues surrounding the controversial and possible closure of Banjul Breweries? What signal would such a closure or downsizing of its operations from a manufacturing entity to a retail outlet pose as long as the economic development aspirations of this country is concerned? What signal would this send to foreign investors that we are looking and have been looking at attracting in the Gambia? What would be the immediate implications and ramifications in our economy when Banjul Breweries cease operations? These, amongst others, would inform our discussion over the next 1 hour. To help us better understand the issues, we have invited the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, represented here today by Mr. Babukar Job, the Director of Economic Policy and Research at the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs. We have also invited Mr. Buri Dabo, who is the Country Sales Manager at Banjul Breweries. Gentlemen, a warm welcome to our Business and Economy program.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I am going to kickstart the discussions by asking Mr. Buri Dabo to give us, if you will, Mr. Dabo, some synopsis of the issues and the challenges relating to the recent excise tax that has been leveled against your company. If you could just give us a brief background so that the viewership could appreciate the issues that we're about to discuss in depth.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ben. You may wish to note that this excise tax issue has been on discussion since the Minister of Finance gave a budget speech in December of 2018 on the 14th. But prior to the budget speech, through the online papers, we were able to discover that a policy is being made to hike the excise tax on the domestic julbro from 10% to 75%. This came to us as a shockwave because in as much as we may expect government to increase taxes, but the manner and the rate at which it has been hiked was really a big surprise to the corporate society, especially Banjul Breweries Limited. Now, as a corporate citizen, we decided to consult to find out actually what is the rationale behind the hike. We waited for a while to see whether we will be officially informed or written to as a corporate partner to government, shareholders, and employees. But unfortunately, we've never had any communication to that in that regard. However, we decided to engage the Ministry of Finance by writing our first letter on the 20th of December to highlight the consequences of the excise tax on Banjul Breweries Limited, and not only Banjul Breweries Limited, but on the economy of the country and the tourism, and also unemployment. And in the event government move ahead with the decision to implement it, the effects it will have on the operations of Banjul Breweries Limited. These were all highlighted. And that if we do not sit to discuss and come to know actually what the consequences, the impact it will have on our operations and on businesses that depend on Banjul Breweries Limited. And on tourism, we will have to take some social measures. And social measures means to cut down, to lay off some staff, to give us the room to be able to continue to operate. But we waited to give time because it was going to be implemented on the 1st of January 2019. So we decided to wait. The letter went, but no reply. We waited for the whole of January to also see how the excise tax will have on our sales and our turnover. We waited until the end of January. We got no response from the finance ministry, neither trade. Then we wrote our second letter in February. I think that motivated the Ministry of Trade. After meeting them, myself and the Secretary General of the company, Fatou Sinyan, to discuss with Trade Ministry so that we can amicably look at the issue at hand. Yes, it's a policy that came about or brought in by the Minister of Finance, but the consequence it's going to have is going to be so hard that if we do not look at it holistically and discuss it, we are not saying don't increase. We agree with the increment, but the rate at which it was increased, we do not agree with that because it has a lot of negative effects on us and it's also going to affect our tourism. So the Trade Ministry did ask us to make an opinion paper or a position paper, which we did. And I think they used that to now advise the Finance Ministry as the way forward. And in fact suggested a rate to scale it down from 75 to 40%. That was the suggestion from trade. But even at that 40%, we still see that as very high, as an economy that is growing. You know, we are not up to those economies that we want to compare ourselves at this very moment. Yes, we may have that drive to reach others, but I think I'm not a financial analyst or economist, but the best we could have done is do it gradually, allow the company to operate and realize its full potential while the government continues to receive the desired revenue from Banjul Breweries Limited. But we had no reply from finance, whatever the reason, we do not know. And we believe, because we believed as a corporate partner that has been in here for years, and then, you know, in good relationship with the government of the day, we believe that as a ministry and as a Minister of Finance and Trade, especially trade where which bracket we fall into, should be able to take up our case and address it. But this was not done. Trade did it, but finance, Mr. Job, I'm sorry, but it's the economics. Maybe whether he's involved or not, I will not be able to say, unless he'll highlight that. But honestly, we had no reply from them. So we sent a third letter, still no reply. And we had to take our first measure, that is to lay down staff. And then we really moved 18 people off. Now, we were going to move to the second phase. And management had to discuss, is that a proper way to do that? Yes, our turnover is going down, our sales volume is going down. But the laying down of the staff also is not going to help because those guys haven't done anything wrong. You know, over the years they have been performing very good. You know, and then, you know, 2018 was a turning point for the company because for 5 years in a row, Banjul Breweries have been operational when the French took over for 5 years in a row without realizing profit. You know, the major time, the best time we realized a profit was in 2018. That's a significant profit, which we realized. And the shareholders believe that it's worthwhile waiting. And then 2018 became a turning point for them. So all that they had hoped for, they becoming to realize their dreams. But for Banjul Breweries to be slapped with the excise tax, we cannot understand that. And that's why we've been sending them letters for them to understand the situation. Yes, in as much as you want to get more money from Banjul Breweries Limited, but if Banjul Breweries is not able to continue to operate, that budget you have earmarked to get from Banjul Breweries, you will not get that. Now, what you are getting currently, you will also lose if Banjul Breweries close shut down. So it will be, instead of win-win situation, you now have
a zero-sum game.
Zero, because the owners will just pack off Remember, they have 41 companies in Africa. You know, they could just roll up and move out. Just recently, they shut down Niger for non-profitability. And coming next week, they have to get a liquidator to sell that company off. So this is the situation we have been faced with. But actually, we wanted to sit with them and discuss. But actually, on the side of finance, definitely, you know, we had a lot of hope, you know, and belief that yes, it's a policy, it's something that has went to Parliament and Parliament voted for it, you know. But was it properly scrutinized? Was it well presented to Parliament for them to understand what was embedded in that? That is something that they have to tell us and the parliamentarians.
Well, on that
this
note,
is the situation. We are in a critical position,
yes.
and our operations at this very moment, I will tell you results when I get to that.
Yeah.
You know, it's so alarming that I would indulge Mr. Job as an expert in finance to definitely look at that flagship they own, you know, to protect it.
Yes. Let me bring in Mr. Babukar Job in. Mr. Job, some of the points that he has alluded to in terms of the increment in the excise tax from 10% to 75%, which he said is quite high, and he is of the opinion that perhaps whilst they agree that an increase was in order, they had thought that perhaps the increase would have been gradual, over time. But let me ask this question. You being the Director of Economic Policy and Research at the Finance Ministry, what sort of a preliminary engagements or research was undertaken prior to the increase in the excise tax from 10 to 75%? Because one would presume that perhaps some factors would have been looked at, some analysis would have been undertaken to sort of ascertain if the increase is in order, or if the increase is undertaken, what would happen vis-a-vis tax revenue, collections. Would it help to meet the objective for which the increase was put in the first place? What were some of these preliminary measures? Were any taken?
Thank you very much, Mr. Roberts. I think let me start off with the context in which this whole process actually commenced. I think the process actually commenced in the sense that we are looking at holistic tax reforms and geared towards increasing the revenue base of the economy. You realize that there are lots of user fees, rates, and charges that have, for a long period of time, some are actually backdated till 1977, that have not been changed. And hence the reason that actually prompted us to start looking at some of these rates and how to bring those rates into reality right now because of those services that are actually being delivered. So coming to maybe Banjul Breweries specifically, what we had, the excise is not anything new. It has been in operations for Banjul Breweries since 2011, 2012, but at a rate of 10%. So looking at increasing the revenue base to be able to provide for the needs of the country, we thought it wise to increase the rates after due consultation. But in hindsight, obviously, consultation could have expanded to various other areas as well. One thing I would definitely want to agree with him is that maybe, yes, we went extremely hard on it, and we could have done it on a gradual basis. But one thing he also mentioned is that the increase is also apt, because since 2012 to date, we haven't touched excise on alcohol beverages, be it beer, be it spirit, and the like. So that was in the context in which we actually increased the rates. Yes.
Now, I'm going to pinpoint, certain points which he started to allude to, but he did not go into detail. He did mention that 18 people, 18 of their staff have been laid off thus far. I don't know whether that laying of staff is permanent or is temporal. and should a review of this excise tax take place, maybe those staff could be brought back in. But I mean, I believe in 2018, you know, from my research, correct me if I'm wrong, Banjul Breweries paid about $132 million in taxes to the GRA. I mean, and this was at a 10% excise tax rate. You know, 132 million. Yes, I know if you look at the percentage of that tax as a total of the entire tax that is collected by GRA, perhaps under 2%, you know, or thereabout. But it is still a significant chunk for one entity in an economy. $132 million, you know, I mean, it's not small money. And I believe that if you take into consideration the fact that your wholesale dealership, you employ about 150 people in total. So were these factors taken into consideration at the time of, say, implementing this tax? I mean, did finance look at the issue of, okay, should we go from a 10% excise tax increase to 75%? What are the possible implications in terms of the operations of the business, possible, I mean, redundancies that may emerge, you know, because one would expect that these are some of the things that perhaps finance would have looked at before they implemented, I mean, the measure. I mean, I'm asking this question because, I mean, these seem to be issues and challenges that we are facing in our economy. It seems as if policy is being done in silo, implemented, then there's an outcry, and then we want to retract or we want to reconsider. And that goes to support the point that he's making, that perhaps some semblance of consultation would have been in order with them. I mean, what is your take, I mean, on this?
I think in terms of consultation, you can never have an exhaustive consultation because it is an ongoing process. I would agree with him in the sense that, yes, more could have been done. In the sense of increasing the rates to 75, yes, in hindsight, we could have done a bit better in terms of moving on a gradual pace. What you realize in this sub-region especially, let's say our neighbor Senegal, the rate at which they are charging excise is to the tune of 50% and more. So that is not a justification for increasing ours to the level that we have done, and hence the reason why we are actually engaging them right now. We have engaged Banjul Breweries, we've had a series of meetings with them, and we are currently reviewing that policy. The Ministry of Finance, like you mentioned, is not doing policy in a way that is, for instance, doing it, then allowing the negative impacts actually felt by individuals. The whole essence is, the reason why we're open as well is that this has been done and it's actually impacting on the business of the company, and obviously it has negative externalities that are actually being felt as of now. Hence the reason why we have brought them back on the table to look at the impact and how we can remedy the situation. Because like we mentioned earlier on, there's no point in overcharging the company rates that eventually it's going to lead them to close down, because the revenues that we are anticipating on getting from them will never actually materialize. So we are on the table, we are discussing right now. A position paper has been placed before the minister to review, and hopefully he will be in a position to discuss that with the Ministry of Trade, so that we'll at least put to bed this saga. Yes.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that would be music to Mr. Dabo's ears, given the point that he's made that, you know, I mean, they've written, but finance haven't responded, and at least you're getting some indication that perhaps a response would be forthcoming. The question is, how soon will that response come, and would it have been too late for Banjul Breweries? But continuing on that point, Mr. Bori, you did make the point that when the excise tax was increased from 10 to 75%, I mean, you've endeavored to deal with this situation whilst you engage officially in the background. Yeah. But then circumstances have compelled you to sort of begin to take drastic measures as redundancies, and you've laid off 18 people. There is talk in the grapevine that Banjul Breweries has actually been offered a piece of land in Casamas, you know, for a possible relocation. I mean, I like to talk on facts, but yes, this is what is on the grapevine, and that Senegal is trying to attract you, you know, to relocate your operations in Casamance. I mean, is there some truth to this? And if it is this something that Banjul Breweries is considering?
Thank you very much. I will start first, like with the 18 people you talked about, whether if the matter resolved, whether we'll absorb them. Yes, the company would be ready, because right now the positions those guys left are weakened, and the production line is definitely there, and the staff out there are suffering, because quite a number of those guys were actually inside the plant and then doing very, very delicate responsibilities. So it is a position where you will have 2 or 3 people. Now you only have 1 there. So that makes the work difficult. And the new technical director is having a lot of trouble to make sure the plant is flowing the way we expect it. You know, it's difficult. But honestly, if we're all able to understand the situation and reverse it quickly, yes, those are all young boys, you know, that nobody would like to see them in the streets. Yes, Banjul Breweries is always open to young people to come and work. I'm quite sure management would be in the position to absorb them back. But pending Mr. Job and the team are able to help Banjul Breweries and the country. Now, with regards to the land you're talking about, I may not be able to ascertain that, but I can tell you this is a group that is already crisscrossing the whole of Africa. They are territorial conscious, and they want to dominate the territory of Africa. Now, they have 26 companies and running 41, sorry, they are in 26 countries running 41 companies. And they are not only on beverage side, but they are also on oil industry. You know, Senegal, they have an oil factory there that produces oil and mayonnaise. You know, that is bigger than Banjul Breweries 10 times. So this is Père Castel, you can Google it. This is one of the biggest French investors you have in the whole of Africa. That is partnering with SAB Miller in South Africa and other corporate bodies. You know, here is an individual who also opened an oil factory, and he has a brewery in Guinea-Conakry, but also opened an oil and mayonnaise factory in Guinea-Conakry. And this is the guy who purchased all the nuts of Senegal last year when the government could not buy the nuts of the farmers. He bought it at the 11th hour under the tight nose of the Chinese. So here is an investor that the Gambia government, through finance, can even try to sit down with, engage his team to not only look at only the brewery, but see how they can diversify their operations in the Gambia. So it is a rumor, but it could be right, because already they have already purchased a factory in Guinea-Bissau. So where they're able to do in Guinea-Bissau, and they are having stiff problems in the Gambia here with regards to continuation, they could easily have it in Casamance, which is very easy for them, less taxation. And what would happen? They would just flood our market, and Gambia is going to continue to lose. As I speak to you, the Senegalese flag is already in Farafenni. When we are selling ours at 1,000, when our customers are buying from the factory at 1,026 and selling at 1,082, Senegalese are flooding our market in Farafenni and selling their flag, you know that, from the Christian community, for $833, whilst we are selling ours at 1,082. So already, how are those products coming in?
Smuggling.
And we are losing revenue because they're not coming through the right channels. So yes, they could, because Castel Group, BGI, is a powerful group. If they put their eye on somewhere and they need a land, they could get it. Because for them, it's to dominate French investment in Africa. And we today, they are the top. And as a flagship in the Gambia, I think we need to encourage, you know, the finance need to, I'm glad that I have an economics in front of me, you know, who deals with all the statistics and so on. So he could be a good person. In fact, I will ask him to be our focal man now to work on this issue, so that honestly, you know, this thing can be resolved as quickly as possible, because otherwise, then we are going to lose. And this is what, I'm not speaking for myself, but for the Gambia. Banjul Breweries has been here, and what the shareholders are saying, why do you want to close Banjul Breweries after 42 years of operation? That's a question they are still not able to answer, and which we're still asking them. Because when the increment was done from 10 to 75, a crate of Julbro was increased by 381, one crate, 381. Yes. When you were buying it at 700, now you will buy it at $1,082. So you see the gap. That means a wholesaler price was increased by 59.10%, which customer is ready for a product at an increment rate of 59.10%.
At one go.
At one go.
Well, he's an economist, so...
maybe let me chime in here. I think let's get things. I don't think it is the policy of the government of the Gambia and the Ministry of Finance to put any business out. I think what we have been doing these past couple of years is to encourage investments in the country. As you can see, you can realize that for the past 3 to 5 years, we've been reducing corporate taxes from as high as 33% to now 27%. And we are even thinking of even doing more by reducing those rates. All of those is actually geared towards improving business in the Gambia. Recently, we also conducted a private sector pre-budget consultation to find out exactly what are those things that are actually hindering investment in the country as well, and what are the private sector difficulties that they're actually encountering in doing business in the Gambia, especially from the government side of things. All of that is actually geared towards knowing exactly the difficulties and challenges that you are actually facing so that we can address them in our policies. If you realize all the policies that we have been doing for as far back as 3-5 years, all geared towards encouraging private investment. If, for instance, people have the notion that we are trying to kick Banjul Breweries out of business, I think that's the wrong notion, because we are on the one hand encouraging businesses. The reason why we are here discussing this is because it's a concern to government and concern to the Ministry of Finance per se. So that's the reason why we are discussing this issue, looking forward to having a solution at the end of the process. And I believe we will definitely have a solution that would you'll be comfortable with, and also government would also be comfortable with as well. But be rest assured that the intention, I'm not here speaking for the government as a whole. I'm not there's someone who's in a better position to do that. But from the policy side of things that I'm talking from, our intention is not to kick Banjul Breweries out of business.
I understand, but the reason why we are saying, we're not actually saying you really want to close us down. But the issue is the rate at which the excise tax is affecting us right now could trigger for closure. Because my boss don't want me to say it, but I would say it here as a policymaker for you to know, or as an economist. Now, if I'm operating and I'm losing my sales volume, and I'm losing the turnover, there'll be difficulty for me to progress. Because right now, I am telling you, just last month, we are down, I am telling you, a loss of $13 million for May only as a result of the excise tax. My boss don't want me to say it, but I want to say it for you to understand. This is the situation. And if the trend continues, it's not you to shut it down, but it's as a result of the policy that we make the company shut down, because it will not be operational. No business person would want to see its growth going down, turnover tumbling down, and even realizing in a month, $13 million. And in April, we paid $12 million to you as excise tax, $4.6 million as VAT. So that's $16.6 million contribution April alone.
No, I would.
So I'm just buttressing.
No, let me help you.
Yes.
You are paying more than that.
Yes, I know.
If you look at the whole gamut of payments that Banjul Breweries is, not only in government but to the whole sector, you're talking about maybe 14 different payments to government, to the councils,
exactly,
to the other authorities, and which we appreciate. And hence the reason why I'm assuring you that this situation
and that's
will
why
be
I'm
resolved.
making you the focal guy to make sure Banjul Breweries doesn't shut down. Because the fear is, if we continue to incur losses, staff will be laid off. And if the shareholders are receiving every month negative results from us, they would equally advise that we shut down, as they did to Niger recently. Niger is already shut down. At the last hour, the government want to intervene to have it reopened. So we do not want the same scenario to happen in the Gambia. And that's why we're talking. We're engaging, because we cannot challenge our government. But if something that is going to cut your revenue base, your collection, and it will affect that flagship company, because in as much as you are trying to attract people, we also help in that direction. Because our managing director, even our secretary general, each time they move out, when people ask them, they would always encourage them to come and invest in the Gambia. So we definitely doing that. My managing director will always move to Senegal almost once or twice in a month. And each time he meets his corporate people, he always encourage them to come. But you see, when this thing happens, he's even scared to talk to his colleagues to come and invest in the Gambia. And the whole French community are watching the situation on the ground. I can tell you that for free. They're watching because they believe that as the only main French investment is 99% French ownership. So they're watching, and we do not want a situation to be created where, it's like we're helping you, a situation to be created where that bilateral relations with France or with the company, I could say, because we're corporate partners, could come to a situation where we will not be able to see eye to eye. And we will only be thinking of shutting down, because that's where we are heading to if this situation is not reversed. We cannot turn your hands to do it now. But obviously, fine, the engagement is on. But we're also looking at the time. I know we cannot push you to do it today. But it will be very good if you not do it for me, for Banjul Group, for the Gambia. Because our tourism will be seriously affected if we continue like this. We cannot operate in the next 3 months at 75%. Honestly, I can tell you that today. We cannot.
Let me come in and perhaps look at this issue from a macro perspective. Mr. Dabo spoke about the reality on the ground around Farafenni, in which Flag, which is the Senegalese beer, is finding itself on Gambian soil, and likely as a result of the price differential. I know as an economy, it is always good to sort of a benchmark yourself again, vis-a-vis your neighbors or even within the sub-region. In terms of competitiveness of the economy, in terms of competitiveness of tourism, these are negative effects vis-a-vis what is currently going with this increment of excise tax from 10 to 75%. I know I asked earlier from a policy and research perspective whether preliminary studies were done or assessments were done to look at the implication of this increase from 10 to 75%. Now the question is, in view of the negative realities on the ground, and flagship investment that has a distributorship of about 50 wholesalers who are employing between 2 to 5, some even as high as 10 people.
No, 25.
25.
30.
If you begin to put all of these things together, then in reality, as small as they are in terms of the national cake, you will begin to have some negative implications on society, employment, smuggling issues, and even another issue that I just thought about. If distilled alcohol that is processed and consumed but haven't gone through the processes in terms of advisory, in terms of alcohol content and stuff, if that is expensive, then what's going to happen is, for lack of a better word, people are now going to look at substitutes, cheap substitutes, the likes of Kana, the likes of these alcohol that are being distilled at home.
Second ones.
Sachets. There was a time, I think it was in Tetra Pak.
Tetra Pak.
So all of these issues, all of these are likely negative implications on our economy and on society. From a health perspective, from unemployment, from smuggling, competitiveness of the economy. And this was why I asked the question whether some preliminary assessment was done vis-a-vis this policy. So in view of all these negatives, I mean, the question I would ask is, and considering the point that he made that they had written since December, the first letter went out in December 2018. We're now in June half year. How soon are we likely to address this issue? That's one question. And I know you are not the policy maker, but perhaps, you know, for sake of discussion, at least the viewership would get to appreciate some of these issues. And considering the fact that this was passed, the 2019 budget was passed at the level of Parliament, because he asked the question, was it packaged in such a way that even the parliamentarians did not even know what they were passing? You know, I mean, because finance cannot be blamed wholly. Finance have done their assessment, finance have done their budget, finance have tabled the budget at Parliament, Parliament have scrutinized the budget, and Parliament have passed the budget. So in a way, us Gambians are also responsible for the challenge that Banjul Breweries finds itself, because at Parliament, the parliamentarians are the representatives of us, the Gambians.
Yes.
Yeah. But in consideration of all these negative impacts and consequences of this excise tax increase, is it possible, and taking into consideration the reality that this decision, if it's reversed, could have negative implications in terms of implementation of the 2019 budget? Because we know revenues are tough to come by, and we know that this economy is running a budget deficit. So is this likely to be addressed in 2019? Because I think it would be good for us to face reality as it is, so that, you know, respective measures could be taken. I mean, if this is going to be addressed, can it be addressed in 2019? If it's not going to be addressed in 2019, then perhaps Banjul Breweries needs to start looking at measures that would help it to stay afloat until 2020, when the issue would be addressed.
I would jump the gun here and give you a short answer that it will be addressed in 2019.
It will be addressed in 2019?
It will be addressed in 2019. Okay. There is no likelihood that will allow this to fester into 2020. But I think what I want to say as well is that I think we have gone past the issue of it was a budget approved by the National Assembly. We are looking at solving a problem that has actually emanated from this. And the whole essence is, that's what we are good at, problem solving. Yeah. And we will definitely solve this problem before the end of 2019. That I can assure you.
Well, Bori, that is some good news.
It's not a good news yet.
Well, it is. I mean, if finance says that the problem will be resolved.
I like his stand, you know, he's been very open and honest. That's what I like. Okay, I wish it could have been somebody different, you know, but he's coming and then, you know, saying exactly what we want to hear. But honestly, you know, if you tell me before the end of the year, how soon would that be? Would it be dragged up to December? Before that, we are already dead. This I want him to understand too.
It will not reach. It will not reach December.
You know, I told you we cannot operate. We cannot continue at 75 for the next 3 months. June, July, August, we are dead. I can tell you that. Niger is closed for non-profitability. It's the same scenario. And Niger is bigger than the Gambia. Niger Brewery is bigger than the Gambia. So if we have to continue for another 1-2 months at the same rate, Mr. Job, I'm sorry, Banjul Breweries will have to shut down. That one I can assure you. Because we're having a board meeting 28th of this month. So we never know what decision the board members and the shareholders would advise. And this is why we are running away from. If the negotiation and the engagement we started continues, and then at least we have a tip of where we want to be, at least we would be reassuring, we will assure our shareholders or owners, yes, we are engaging. And so far, something is at the window. And that we expect between this and that would be coming. So that at least the harsh decision they may want to take in the event is not reversed could be averted. Easy. And that's why we're talking, because we want to avert a situation where they will say, oh, no, Gambia is no more attractive. Pack up. This is what we are trying to avoid. And we really want to help you in that area to attract more people. Because, see, our product is an international brand. It has won so many gold medals. And that's the reason why tourism is kicking fine. People need to understand that very, very well. You see. And if we kill it, our tourism will be seriously affected. So not only us, not jobs only being lost, but a sector that the Gambia depend on, will be seriously affected. And nobody, as a citizen, would like to see that happening. So I would urge you to see how best you can engage your colleagues. And for the sake of the country and our young boys who are out of employment, and who will be out of employment in case of a shutdown, to consider those people so that you can engage with Parliament and see how this can be. Honestly, if you do that, you'll be doing good to the nation, not to Banjul Breweries Limited.
Let me come in here and perhaps ask this question, because if I hear you right, what you're saying is you want to have something on paper that you could use to convince
yes, but if you say,
the investors that, look, this is, things are happening. There are discussions that are ongoing. Yeah. Yes, it may be slow, but at least there is commitment to reviewing from the side of the government this issue. And there's, by all indications, it is likely that we would have some resolution.
Yeah.
Is this
what I'm saying, because our side,
this is what you're looking at.
Yeah, this is what I'm looking at. Our side, we are writing to them. In fact, when our team met them, they asked us to suggest a rate. And then we did that suggestion. We suggested a rate that at 75, we are able to pay for what we had done last year. You mentioned that. Last year, we paid $132 million as revenue from Banjul Brewery. It said it could even be more than that, yes, based on the different taxes that we pay. 2017, we paid $120 million at 10%. So at least we had an improvement. That means we had a growth. But we are able
because of increasing sales.
Because of increased sales. But at 75, the sales are going down. But they are getting more money, and the company is losing. At 75, within 4 months, we were able to pay this year what we have paid for last year. At 75. So if the situation continues like that, the company will become unoperational, because we will not be able to meet our cost. Staff will not be paid, and shareholders will get discouraged and will ask us to part. Now, if they ask us to suggest, and we suggested to them that we could do it this way, already we are done at 75. You have taken all what you needed from us. We would suggest, yes.
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah, we would suggest you now put it at 15%. Up to December, you would have realized what you have earmarked to collect from Banjul Breweries. Because at 75, you collected what you had collected last year. So from there, we move on. Every year, probably, that's our suggestion. You move gradually, 5%, 5%, 5%. At least, you might earmark for 3 years, and you'll see how you can spread it, or 4 years, or 5 years. This was our suggestion. But we are not getting anything from them. So they would ask us our figures. We provided them our figures. And up till today, we don't get any feedback from them on that also. So if I'm being engaged and I'm writing letters and I'm providing figures, I'm making suggestions, and you as a ministry, that is the center stage of all this, we are talking, we are engaging, we are providing, but at the end of the day, you are not telling me something that will, make me believe that yes, the situation will be reversed, and I'll be hopeful of maybe between 15 or 20%, or most 25%. But I'm not getting that.
Mr. Job, is that too much to ask what Banjul Breweries is asking? What they're saying is, and I think one should be able to reason with them. What they're saying is, since the increase in the tax from 10 to 75%, yes, there's more money coming on your side by way of tax revenues. But equally, there are challenges that they're incurring, they're losing. In terms of profitability, they are not profitable. Yes, government is able to meet its targeted revenue from them, and even that is questionable.
Yeah, I told you, we lost 13 million last month.
But the reality is, they need some sort of a correspondence from you to them, saying that, yes, we've received your correspondences, we are looking at this issue, give us time, we'll come back to you by such date, just as you had said. I don't think that's too much to ask. I mean, would finance make a commitment? I mean, so that at least in that way they could now go and engage with their investors to say, look, yes, we are in a difficult situation, but finance is willing to look at this. It may be in 2019. It may be in 2020. We don't know yet.
No, don't go to 2020.
Let me not go to 2020.
No,
okay, well, I keep emphasizing 2020 for a reason.
No,
yeah, but this is what they're asking for, some sort of a commitment. I mean, it doesn't have to be a commitment, but something that they could perhaps send.
What I can assure you that you will receive a letter before the end of the week.
Okay.
Well, that would be great.
Yes, we will receive a letter before the end of the week.
Okay.
Well, I don't want to hold brief for finance, but I know that they have some professionals there, starting with the minister, the permanent secretary, director of budget himself, director of research. And we hope that really, we could sort of avert this looming beast, if I may call it that, in terms of Banjul Breweries folding up, because definitely it would not send a right signal, especially under this new Gambia dispensation, that we have been talking about, because we should be seen to be attracting more investments into the country, creating more employment, farms, flagship investments that have been here for quite a while, helping, as you had rightly indicated, to attract more investment. And Bori, it's one thing to discuss your issue, but it's another thing to also say that don't be surprised if finance takes you on the challenge to say that you have one flagship French investment company in the Gambia. You had undertaken on this platform to see what could be done so that you would have more French companies coming in.
Yeah, for sure.
And because we really need it. In the country.
For sure, that can happen. And that's why I challenged them. I said, look, consider Banjul Breweries case. Let's continue with discussion. Madam Sinyan is the licensed relation officer between the brewery and the government. She's au fait with the matters. She's that kind of a woman who knows things to her fingertip. And I think she worked with most of these people, Job and others. When she was in the government. So obviously she could use her expertise with them together. Because when these guys are coming, they're going with their private jet. They don't join any commercial, their own jet. And they land for 2 hours, the next thing they are gone. These are big time investors. We could use our office with the Ministry of Finance, with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and see how we can encourage them to come and diversify not only on the brewery side, but other sectors too. You see, we could help in that direction. If they are willing to help Banjul Breweries to survive, we can help. Because we know our connections are very good. We know that. With Madam and Mr. Gilson, we know with you and your team members, we can achieve something for the Gambia. And that's why we say we're not challenging, but we're talking because we really want you to understand the situation. And then we work together as a partner and as a team so that we could be more attractive to other investors into the country. And that, you'll be in your office smiling because you're seeing so many investors coming to invest in the country. This is what we want. We don't want to see a country that is being shunned by investors moving to Senegal and moving to Guinea-Bissau. You see? And Macky Sall, for instance, you talked about those sake beers that are 40% alcohol. Ours is 4.7. Now, Macky, on the 24th of April, he banned those ones from Senegal. BOSS, they're called Boss. This is what the youngsters use, and they get intoxicated. Not our product. Now, those things have started coming into the Gambia. They've started coming. And Sobwa is being protected. And the one who owns Sobwa owns Banjul Breweries Limited. But the government of Senegal has protected Sobwa by banning those products from coming in. And the ones that are producing them, they've stopped them from producing. And now the stock they have is now flooding into the Gambia, unabated. And are we being able to monitor them at the border? No. And that means you are going to lose revenue. So you keep Banjul Breweries to continue to have revenue, than to have it shut down. That's no good for anybody.
Perhaps
if that may answer your
perhaps the last point that we may get to discuss on this program, and here I'm going to put my good friend on the spot, but it is also good because perhaps it's an opportunity for the Ministry of Finance to establish the facts as they were. At the onset, you had mentioned that excise tax has been around for some time, and excise taxes, for the most part, have not been touched in terms of government trying to increase its, revenues. But it has come to the point where there was a need to review the various categories of excise, taxes in country for the objective of trying to enhance government revenues. There is the belief out there that the IMF has something to do with this increase in the excise tax of Banjul, breweries. That a suggestion was made by the IMF that perhaps one of the avenues that government could look into in terms of trying to address the deficit and also to help it meet its economic development aspirations is to review the excise tax and increase it generally so that it could begin to make headway on some of its economic development aspirations. Is this people saying, speculating, or is it reality? I know people had said that actually Banjul Brews was a target, in terms of government trying to realize more revenues, and this is why they were slapped from a 10% increase to a 75% increase. I think this is an opportunity for finance to shed light on this. He mentioned earlier that the Christian community is facing the pinch, in terms of this increase, and some people have even called it,
discriminatory,
discriminatory and attacks on the Christian community. What is finance's take on this? Are those mere speculations?
They're mere speculations. Like in my opening statement, I said that what we were doing is looking at the whole gamut of taxes. It was not only excise, and I want to dispel this notion that Banjul Breweries was targeted. Why would the Ministry of Finance or government target Banjul Breweries, who's actually paying more than 14 different taxes to this economy? That's a non-starter. So that notion is false. I can assure you of that. We have changed. If you look at the budget speech in itself, the annex of the budget speech, you see that rates on so many things have changed. User fees, land rates, Ministry of Justice rates. These are all services that the government has actually been giving, but the rates are as far back as 1977. So it just happens that the Banjul Breweries case fell within that spectrum, and individuals think that we are actually targeting Banjul Breweries for that matter. The reason why we're having this discussion is because there's an externality that the policy has actually initiated, but no one has actually said the recent reduction in corporate taxes that is actually benefiting corporate institutions as well.
Yeah, people will always cry foul when it's not in their interest.
So that's what I'm saying. That you do create policies, but most of the time you have an idea, almost 70 to 80% of what you are trying to achieve. But there are instances where we have, for the past 3-5 years, we have introduced almost 15 different policies, reducing NETT levies, reducing all sorts of rates. All get towards, like I said, business improvement. So the situation of Banjul Breweries obviously is a peculiar situation, because obviously it's not only the direct impact that it has, but also the indirect impact that is also fizzling out as well. And we are working with them in order to be able to resolve. But the notion that we are being dictated by the fund, I want to put that to bed. We are trying as much as possible to make sure that nowadays what you realize is that resources that you're getting from your development partners are diminishing on an annual basis. So it is inherent and incumbent upon government to look at ways and means of improving their domestic resource mobilization. Obviously, you also have to bear in mind that you don't do it to the detriment of institutions or companies that are actually in the business, which we are mindful of. Hence the reason why we are discussing and finding a plausible solution for this situation as of now. But domestic resource mobilization is here and is here to stay. That is the only thing that can guarantee the development of your country. Because right now, if you have your development partners leave you, how would you manage your economy? If we are listening to IMF to say that, yes, do this to close Banjul breweries down. If the development partners don't come in with their funds, how are we going to sustain the economy? How are we going to build schools? How are we going to provide services for health services and all of those things? So we are looking at broadening the base of tax in this country, but we are also being mindful that it doesn't affect institutions negatively.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. This is where we're going to draw the curtains. We have had an exceptional discussion here. We're encouraged by the discussions that have unfolded during this past 1 hour, and we are hopeful that what we fear, that a flagship investment will go down in this country, will not happen. We would implore the ministry to really help look into this issue and help bring a resolution. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Mr. Job, Mr. Dabo, thank you very much for coming on this program. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.